Hello world, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello world and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Wednesday, July 30th, the epicenter of a very, very busy broadcast week, and we have a big show for you today. The roots of technocracy exposed, dark enlightenment, the game be techno beast, and featuring top experts Patrick Wood, Courtney Turner, and Joe Allen. Courtney and Joe, both new guests on the Shannon Joy Show. This is a live show, 3 guests. It's going to be a lot of information, and it's an incredibly important conversation. The technocratic era has now been set in motion, ushered in over the past 6 months by the Trump administration. This has the potential, as you all know, to change everything about American life and what it means to be a thinking, rational human. The scope of the rollout is breathtaking. The plan was set in place decades ago. They've captured both political parties and most of our mainstream corporate and educational institutions, and few really understand the impact. And if they do understand the impact, way too few in conservative media will target President Trump and his complicity in the rollout of this technocracy, which is the topic that we're going to hit in the first segment. Today, we're going to take a deep dive in all of this with 3 of the foremost experts in the world on this topic. As I mentioned, Patrick Wood, Courtney Turner, and Joe Allen. Patrick and Courtney will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. I've invited Joe to stick around for that interview. The last hour will be on all of the elements of the technocracy and the breathtaking rollout of legislation, executive orders, and now potentially a new executive order to open up every American's 401k to shady private equity and cryptocurrencies, all at the hands of Donald Trump. So this all happened in July, literally in just the span of a few weeks, and basically crickets from conservative media. And this is where we're going to start this discussion today. Joe Allen, again, new guest on the Shannon Joy Show, called us out here on the show for calling out people like Steve Bannon and Glenn Beck and Ben Shapiro. You guys all saw the clip that went semi-viral over the weekend, 100,000 views at this point, and sparked a major discussion about the lack of scrutiny on Donald Trump. My position, Donald Trump is the Trojan horse for the technocrats, far worse than anything we could have ever gotten from a Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And the lack of scrutiny from conservative media, in my opinion, is hampering our ability to resist this and stop it dead in its tracks. This is the video that went semi-viral. Joe Allen, who is a regular contributor on Steve Bannon in the War Room, had some issues with it. And so I invited him here on the show for a healthy discourse about that. Annie, let's roll that tape first. We'll bring Joe in right after, and we'll get right into the debate right here on the Shannon Joy Show. Let's go. January 23, 2025, Trump signs the executive order removing all AI barriers. July 18, 2025, the Genius Act is signed into law. July 23, AI.gov goes live and AI action plan is released. Have you seen any of this on Steve Bannon's War Room? Have you seen any of this on Glenn Beck's chalkboard? Have you seen any of this on your favorite right-wing news radio or, commentator? Have you seen this on The Blaze? Have you seen this on Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro? Have you seen any type of in-depth analysis from the right? None whatsoever. Exactly what they wanted to happen happened. Their guy got into office. Their guy was a Trojan horse for the technocrats. And now the right-wing media apparatus is looking away as this is happening again. The same thing that they did during the lockdowns of 2020 and the rollout of Operation Warp Speed. It is the exact same playbook. Groundhog Day political hell. Why am I the only one in right-wing news media, the only one in right-wing news media talking about this days after it happened? It is time for you to begin to challenge these people who are leading this nation, their constituents, their audiences off a cliff. Off a cliff. All right, that was the clip, and our new friend, new guest, Joe Allen, had something to say about it. He tweeted out, "Can someone set this girl straight?" We have been covering this on Steve Bannon. I have been covering this on The War Room. He is the author of he's a expert in technocracy, and had, like I said, something to say about my position. So I figured I'd invite him on here to set me straight, right to my face. Joe Allen, you're such a great sport. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Appreciate you coming in. His website is joebot.xyz. You can follow him on Twitter at joebotxyz. As I mentioned, regular contributor on Steve Bannon's War Room. Thanks for being with us. And yeah, I'll give you the floor. I had my opening remarks, and we saw the video that irritated some on conservative right. I want to give you the opportunity to respond.
Well, Shannon, thank you very much for having me. I would have just wished you had just checked at our site before you had said that. We were covering it for the 2 days prior, and during Trump's speech, Steve had to leave, and I was left to react solo. As you know, reacting solo into the camera is a daunting task, even after 4 years of becoming a cyborg. So maybe I wasn't sufficiently hysterical. I don't know. But so I think that, having talked to you yesterday and gotten a bit more familiar with your work, I think that we certainly align on most of these issues, at least the technological problem in total. But there are different approaches to how to deal with this. The way I see the problem itself, looking at artificial intelligence solely, because that was really the impetus behind the AI action plan and all that's really focused on AI and not the downstream technologies. So looking at AI alone, the first really big problem that it poses to the public, and it's one that's been with us for decades and only increasing, is mass surveillance and the weaponization of AI, whether that be for deep fakes and social disruption, or whether we're talking about drone systems and actual missile systems that are powered by advanced algorithms. The second is this idea of human replacement, which you hear all the time from the heads of the frontier companies and many of the startups, and certainly the kind of transhumanist and post-humanist ideologues who discuss this. Total human replacement. Some are more conservative. They say, no, it'll just partially replace humans. Some try to spin it as, no, humans will just become cyborgized in advance. But ultimately, what they're talking about is replacing what we know as human and, in essence, in my estimation, atrophying what is human, our intellect, our social relationships, our political power, all of that. The third is a little bit more esoteric, and I'll just kind of put a pin in it, but it's the AI mythology, the idea that we're generating, or that they, more accurately, are creating some kind of digital god, that they are going to create artificial general intelligence and then super intelligence, and that will, in essence, be the apex predator, or as it's been said, the apex parasite over all of us. So how do you deal with it? People have asked me this all the time, because a lot of my time is spent just simply criticizing the system. And I must admit, I'm pretty short on solutions, but the path forward in my analysis, as best as I can see it, is basically fivefold. The most immediate power that we have at our disposal is personal choice. Each of us can choose to become part of this system. We can send our souls into Rumble and XAI or not. We can use digital currency or not, for the most part. You can use AI or not. But personal choice, I think, is the core of the solution. Beyond that, though, because no person is going to be able to take on a system of this magnitude, you need communal norms, local communal norms, whether this be your church or your social groups or how you conduct yourself in the world with your fellow people. trying to find some consensus. Just for an example, we are not going to let our children use smartphones. This has become extremely popular, and I think a very good sign that that all is not lost. So you got personal choice, communal norms, but then you have the institutional policies. And so when you're looking at schools, you're looking at corporations, you're looking at the government, what you see is a massive push to use artificial intelligence at every level, whether it's giving students bots to teach them or giving workers bots that they are forced to use and defer to in their decision making. Or in the federal government, what we're seeing more and more is that very thing coupled with the vast the data fusion that you see, for instance, with Palantir fusing identities across different agencies. Now, the fourth, and I think this is probably where we would disagree the most, is the political option. How can you pass laws to slow down, stop, or at least control the development of these technologies? And how do you protect people from the worst outcomes of these technologies? And that political process is messy. That political process is full of corruption and moneyed interest. A lot of what we see, especially with the AI action plan, is being driven by AI accelerationists. And I'm completely against that influence from that camp on the Trump administration. But you have the municipal options. You have the state options, thanks to the repeal of the proposed AI moratorium, at least for now. And there are also federal options. And I'll just close with this. Some are completely disillusioned with Trump and, big tent conservatism. And I get it. I've never really been a political person, and I'm not enthusiastic about any of this. But I do think Steve Bannon has worked for years to push all sorts of American policies through into the Trump administration. As he describes it, Trump is a vehicle for the heartland. Trump is an instrument, a weapon. And so to the extent Trump could be used against these tech companies, we certainly hope that will happen. Unfortunately, disappointingly, at present, that's not happening. And I think that's a lot of the disillusionment you feel. I'm, again, a fairly apolitical person, but at least this is all I'm going to speak for Steve Bannon. But Steve Bannon is confident that he can, in fact, put that influence on Trump and the administration to perhaps divert this in another direction. As I say, right now, not looking good.
Thanks so much, Joe. And I think a lot of your analysis is spot on. I agree with you 100%. The area that we disagree is the area that involves Donald Trump. Steve Bannon sees him as a vehicle or a weapon to stop this. I see Donald Trump as the Trojan horse to usher it in. And the longer we give Donald Trump rope and time and hope and prayers that he's somehow going to wake up and figure this out and disentangle himself from the likes of Lutnick and Thiel and Vance and Musk, I think is a pipe dream. I think we have 10 years of history looking at Donald Trump in terms of promises that are broken and never, ever, ever made good on. We also see the entrance of some of the worst totalitarian dystopian policies that we've seen in the history of this country. It was Donald Trump that gave us the lockdowns of 2020, 2 weeks to stop the spread, which turned into 2 years of absolute hell. It was Donald Trump that rolled out Operation Warp Speed, which created the vaccine that poisoned and killed millions of Americans. Donald Trump still has no remorse, no discussion about that. If right-wing media, including Bannon and Alex Jones and Glenn Beck and Ben Shapiro, had anything to say about the lockdowns and the reality of forced and coerced vaccination, if they had even made a peep about Operation Warp Speed, we might not have the disaster that we're facing today. And so I see where we are right now. The past 6 months have been absolutely breathtaking. When you start with the emergency declaration on energy, which is now paving the way for massive Manhattan-sized data centers across the United States of America, run by Mark Zuckerberg, that was Donald Trump who signed that emergency declaration. When you look at the Musk coup de Doge, where Trump opened up the federal government 4 or 5 weekends in a row for Elon Musk to walk in and suck up trillions of dollars potentially of absolutely valuable American data, That was Donald Trump. He did that. When you look at the big, beautiful bill, the big betrayal bill, and how that shackled the states for 10 years. So there is no state resistance. There is no local resistance to any type of AI development. And that is the bill that Donald Trump is championing. When you look at the Stable Act, the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, three pieces of legislation that further secure the technocracy, the governmental aspect of the technocracy, no longer a democracy, no longer a republic. We are ruled by the technocrats. That was Donald Trump. He signed those bills. When you look at the executive orders, the AI action plan that he just rolled out, 3 executive orders last week, the AI action plan, which you covered very well. I appreciate the information on this. And now, as I mentioned, the executive order to open up 401ks to cryptocurrencies, a complete reset of our currency system with stable coins and all of the surveillance. All of this is Donald Trump. You cannot remove the analysis. And so when Steve Bannon talks about the technocracy or talks about the, Elon Musk or the technocrats or AI or transhumanism and omits Donald Trump from the analysis, that completely obliterates his analysis because he's missing the most critical component. Peter Thiel and the technocrats went in and dumped hundreds of millions of dollars to get Donald Trump elected. He is now returning the favor. Elon Musk has $1 trillion in critical data. Palantir is up 65% in the past 6 months, becoming the most powerful corporation on the face of the planet with the amount of data that they are accruing under this president. So from my perspective, any conservative who is going to fearmonger about the technocracy, but not speak up when it matters, right? In the past 3 weeks, in the past 3 months, when we could have stopped these things because they're too afraid to scrutinize Trump because he'll hammer them or he'll yell at them. This fear in conservative media, in my opinion, is destroying this nation. In my opinion, it's time that they wake up. I'll give you the floor.
I hear you. Look, the outward-facing strategy is perhaps deceiving in regards to the hours and hours and hours every day of work going on behind the scenes. And I understand completely the complaint that you have. The one issue, for instance, Operation Warp Speed, the rollout of the vax, Bannon and the War Room were solid on that completely. You look at, say, the presence of Naomi Wolf. Naomi Wolf, very much a liberal, very much a Democrat, very much in disagreement with so many different areas and topics with Steve. And yet Steve brings her on consistently and keeps her on because the War Room is a carousel of a lot of different views. So
I love Naomi. I love Steve. But if you're omitting Trump from culpability of poisoning and killing millions of Americans, and we're playing this game, well, we're going to wait. We're going to trust the plan. He's playing 5-dimensional.
Well, we are not plan trusters. I am certainly no plan truster. In fact, if I can give you any sort of insight as to how this is all moving forward, there's not even a whole lot of little p plans. So it's fairly chaotic. I'll say this as well, as far as the possibility of veering this, because if you look at if you want to completely disconnect from these systems, right? You want to be completely outside of them and not participate, not give them power, not give them energy, and certainly not give them praise. I mean, it really, realistically, we're talking about like a mass rejection of these technologies, which I personally would be fine with. If you and I could today call for millions or tens of millions or 100 million Americans to break their smartphones, to never log on to X ever again, never go to Rumble ever again, to consume their media in the old-fashioned way, I honestly think it would probably be a better world. But at the present, this is not realistic. You're kind of stuck inside these systems. We have 3.5 years. We have 3.5 years left of the Trump administration. If there's any hope at all to steer Trump in the direction towards humanity and away from the machine, we're going to take it as long as possible.
How on earth do you plan to steer Trump away from this when he is completely funded by Peter Thiel? His entire presidency is dependent upon the technocrats. And
I think there's a big difference between dependency and influence, a tremendous amount of influence. Tremendous. You saw what happened with Musk. You saw how easily Musk was able to slide in with money, with the engine, the kind of mind control engine that is X.com. You saw how his personality is such that he somehow, even with all his weirdness, was able to basically hypnotize a vast, vast majority of the MAGA movement and the conservative movement. Not everyone, absolutely not everyone, but for a moment, it was pretty terrifying how easily he could hypnotize them. And yet, Trump and Elon Musk are now absolutely on the outs. It's not some kind of show.
I don't believe that for a second.
Well, maybe you have some inside baseball. Maybe you have some inside baseball I'm missing out on. But no, that is absolutely a legitimate break, at least in regards to their sort of partnership politically. It's not. I mean, I can understand how from the outside it must look like a pro wrestling match, but I think it's much more of a circus. And in this circus, there are gladiatorial arenas and the blood is real. The fights oftentimes are very real. If there's one thing that I've learned from seeing how the sausage is made in media and in politics, it's that it's not as bad as it looks, and it's far, far worse than it seems. What the outward display doesn't necessarily represent what is happening on the inside, but absolutely the break between Trump and Musk, what it shows is this is not just one monolithic system with one dark-robed emperor pulling all the strings. These are a lot of different people, very human people, very fallible people, and very impetuous people. And in that system of impetuous humans, it's possible to steer it. It's possible you'll fail, but you have to keep trying to steer it. Or at least we do. You don't have to.
Sometimes you have to rip the Band-Aid off and acknowledge that the guy is not on your team. He's just not that into you. And Trump isn't working for the little guys, and he's not laying awake at night worrying about your 401k or your family. Trump is taking the money, honey. He took the money from his backers. Now he's making good. I think that is I think, quite frankly, it is quite naive, and not to disrespect you, but when I look at grown-ass men, conservative commentators who are hoping and praying that Trump is magically going to all of a sudden wake up to any of this and do the right thing, I think that we have 10 years of discernible policy outcome. We have broken promise after broken promise. He said he was going to repeal Obamacare, never happened. Said he was going to defund Planned Parenthood, never happened. Said he was going to build the wall, never happened. Said he was going to balance the budget, reduce the debt, drain the swamp. None of it happened. Donald Trump's debt and deficit dwarfed even that of Barack Obama and Joe Biden. He said he was going to put Hillary in jail. He never did it. Said he was going to release the Epstein files. He never did it. Said he was going to, once again, usher America into the golden age. It's one rug pull after another after another. And this is the reality of the situation that we are in. And I think it is honestly the fault of conservative media as a whole for not alerting their audiences to what is actually going on. This rolling in of the technocracy is breathtaking. It is a game changer. What he has already done is devastating. And in my opinion, it is now time to call him out, not be afraid to do it. I know that your, audiences are going to get mad at you and you're afraid.
I can say with full confidence that the audience is mad at me all the time. That's not really my concern.
Me too. Over the past 12 years, as a woman who has been solidly opposed to Donald Trump from the day he came down the escalator, I had his number from day one. I've been thrown off multiple platforms. I've lost producers. I've lost half my audience about 3 times because of this. So believe me, the path that I have chosen is not the easy path. But I will say to those in Con Inc. and conservative Inc. out there, there is a way for you to begin to look at the truth and criticize Trump and critique Trump, because honestly, that's the only move forward. I don't believe there are any solutions in Washington, D.C. I think this 2-party political paradigm, they are 2 sides of the same coin. I think Trump is an actor. I think he has duped everyone. He's an utter con man. And the faster we figure that out, the faster we can have any hope of gaining our country back. From the bottom up, I agree with your policy prescriptions. I agree, it's personal choice. It is the community norms in our local communities. It's the institutional policies in our schools, right? It's localism. It's resisting at that local level. Everything that Trump has done has crushed those opportunities. We don't have personal choice about these things because of because of what he is putting in place right now. So I say, let's let's stop focusing on the circus, as you mentioned, that is Donald Trump, and let's focus on utter full-scale resistance from the bottom up, from the state level, within the culture. But that starts with acknowledging what is right in front of our faces. And in my opinion, it's Trump as a complete Trojan horse and a traitor.
You know, the Trojan horse, I get why you say that, but this is a Trojan horse with the Greeks riding on top of it out in the open. I mean, this is one reason you talk about an audience being mad. You talk about an audience being angry throughout the campaign. And I voted for Trump, right? But throughout the campaign, especially as Steve is in prison, it was left to me to cover this however I could possibly communicate this to the posse. And it is a mixed bag. I personally think that under Harris, it would be worse. That's why I voted for Trump. I personally think that we are securing the border. And I think that if they would just go after the employers rather than the immigrants.
For every American. But Joe, let me pause.
Let me just say this. Let me just.
The border with Nikki Haley on every airport screen.
Let me say this.
Digital ID.
Hang on. Calm down. So, I think that certain things are going in our direction, even under the lockdowns and the vax mandates. That was left up to states. That was left up to corporations. So my position on the entire kind of political spectrum, what you're describing, this two-party system, the elections, which are hardly secure and hardly reliable, all of these problems in politics, the endless false promises or broken promises or outright lies, to me, that's politics. It shouldn't be in a perfect world, but from the moment I became politically aware as a kid, it came with a kind of disillusionment. It came with a kind of cynicism that these people are liars. That's what politicians do. I'm not saying you have to accept it. I am saying that that's the system that we're dealing with, and there's two different ways of going at it. You can go at it from outside, you can go at it from within. I would put myself somewhere in the middle, but it's a matter certainly of how do you resist, and I would never discourage you from ginning up local and state level resistance, but I do think it's important to look at the possibility that this could be controlled from within the federal government to some extent, at least mitigated.
All right. The number one impediment for getting anyone to do anything from the local level, especially on the right, is Donald Trump. There's a false sense of security. They have been anesthetized to his betrayals. They have been convinced to trust a plan by QAnon and all of those entities. And so they, the worst aspects of totalitarianism are ushered into this country through Trump. If Biden or Kamala tried to do what Trump has done in the past 6 months, we would have been raging against it. You would have had conservatives from every corner of this country raging against that. But when Trump does it, they let him go. And I fault conservative media for that. And that's why I call them Con Inc. Because you cannot call yourself a journalist. You cannot call yourself an independent commentator or analyst when you are carrying water for a politician. And they have been carrying water and defending this politician for the past 10 years. And I think it's half the reason that we are in this position today. It's impossible to get to the truth because they are so enamored and so in the tank for a political, entity that has betrayed them over and over. And I think it's very destructive. Joe Allen.
I absolutely would not encourage any sort of cult-like.
They do. It's a cult.
Totally.
It's a cult.
As does the left. I mean, human beings are human beings. And if you can find a human being that's independent of a cult, I think you're doing pretty well,
Joe, coming out now and shaming everyone in conservative media and his audience for caring about the Epstein files. The same
and I'm completely appalled and against all of that. I think it is not only just a fumble, it's a disgusting sort of deflection. We'll see what happens. I hope for the best, but I am not, let's just say I'm not putting all my hope.
It sounds like an abusive relationship.
Listen, I don't know how much influence I can put on any of these issues, but I do see that on the one issue that I've dedicated the last 4.5 years, 5 years now of my life to, technology and its damaging effects, its downsides. The Biden administration was horrible. The Trump administration is horrible. And so was Obama's administration. If you want to talk about, and I'm not trying to do a whataboutism. What I am saying is, from Bush forward, the problems of surveillance and weaponized technology, the problems of replacement, at that time, mass immigration and human atrophy, and you could see the seeds of it, especially flowering with Obama. The problem of this mythology of technology being this solution to what are otherwise human and spiritual problems. It has only grown, and I would agree 100% on this one issue. It has gotten worse under Trump. It got worse in 2016. It got worse in 2020 under Biden. It is now getting worse in the last 7 months. We have almost 3.5 years of this. We're going to have to figure something out. If the taxing and not participating is the answer for you, I get it. I understand the disillusionment.
Do not accuse me of non-participation.
I only mean as someone.
Local
I only mean participating. I'm not accusing you of that. I mean, if you don't want to participate as in a cooperation with those who are trying to steer the Trump agenda.
Journalists cooperate with politicians.
You don't have to, and you don't. And so I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to. In fact, I think it's great that you're holding feet to fire. Somebody's got to do it, right? And we are doing it while still supporting and trying to steer the Trump administration in a positive direction on this. Look at Netanyahu.
We got to go. It's great. This is a good discussion. But we do have some of our other guests in the Joy Virtual. You're great, Joe. I appreciate you. I appreciate the discourse. I have Annie, some in the live chat are saying that my mic is muffled. Not sure if that's the case, but we are going to go to break. We'll be back in a moment right here on the Shannon Joy Show. Our friends over at Native Path. Hey, you guys know that my morning routine, one of the ways I stay healthy, almost 50 years old. I can't believe that I am almost halfway through a natural life. And one of the ways that I maintain a pain-free lifestyle and great hair, nails, and skin. Also, it's just a great way to restore collagen. You guys know it is my favorite, Native Path Collagen. Every single morning in my coffee, it is a must. I use Native Path Collagen. Devastatingly Handsome Dr. Joy uses Native Path Collagen for his joint pain. It has helped him in so many ways. And I believe every person over the age of 40 should be implementing collagen into their diet on a regular basis. Reduces inflammation. There are so many good outcomes from that daily use of collagen. And Native Path Collagen is the best on the market. It dissolves instantly. It has absolutely no taste. It is protein. It's beef derived, and it is absolutely clean. The best part, it is the best price point that you will find on collagen anywhere in the market. You won't find these price points at the drugstore. You won't find these price points at your discount grocery center. It is the best collagen for the best price, and you can only get it at getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. That's getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. Use that Joy promo code for an additional 45% off. It's the only way you're going to get that stock up sale price. And I just recommend it. I've been using collagen for years. People ask me, how do you stay so young and vibrant, Shannon? And one of my secrets is, of course, Native Path Collagen.
In fact, this is what I've been focused on for the last 3-4 years, is warning people about technocracy. And people were concerned about it a year ago. People were concerned about it before the election because they viewed the technocracy as being Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab and the UN. And so they're buying the propaganda. But what's actually happened is, I think technocracy has accelerated probably by about 5 years based on what's just happened in, the last 6 to 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
And this includes, people worry about digital ID. I think when I was on last time, we talked about that. That's what Real ID is. It is already digital in 8 states, and they're expanding to the other states. The One Big Beautiful Bill added $150 billion for surveillance. There's essentially the Patriot Act 2.0 within the One Big Bill.
Wow.
which is being used for AI, drones, surveillance across the board. And so that wasn't discussed. People have bought the propaganda on that. And of course, my primary area of interest and focus has been around CBDCs. And what they passed with the Genius Act is actually worse than a CBDC. And unfortunately, it's a little bit technical to explain. But I think the easiest way I can do it right now is to say I'm redefining CBDC as a Congress-backed digital currency. That's
Okay,
it,
there we go. There you go.
well, and there's an important reason for that. What they've done, what the politicians have done, the Trump administration and Congress, is they've made the Federal Reserve out to be the bad guy. Now, don't get me wrong, the Federal Reserve is the bad guy in the sense that they're a completely unnecessary third party. It's a private cartel of banks that essentially just makes money out of thin air backed by government debt. So they're
Right.
completely useless as a third party. However, all of the financial surveillance that is in the current system, our money is already trackable, it's already programmable, it's already censorable. None of that originated from the Federal Reserve. The primary source of financial surveillance, meaning the know your customer laws and anti-money laundering laws, all of that information that you have to give to a bank or to a crypto exchange just to set up an account with biometric readings and all of this other stuff, all of the tracking that's being done in terms of AI surveillance with the IRS or NSA bulk data collection, and even the debanking that's happened with people like Dr. Joseph Mercola and even the Trump family. None of that originated with the Federal Reserve. Most of that originated from Congress. So what they've done is they've tried to convince people that the Federal Reserve is the bad guy, even though they're the bad guy with respect to financial surveillance. And then they've taken a private solution called stablecoins and put it under the control of Congress and the Federal Reserve. And they've painted it out to be something that's patriotic and being done to protect the financial privacy of Americans, even though it's the exact opposite of that. It's adding the financial surveillance to something that was already popular and private. So it's ingenious in that respect. So we have that. So we have a backdoor CBDC, but I would argue even worse because there's no resistance to it. If you tried to launch a CBDC from scratch, you would get resistance. In this case, stablecoins were used for $27 trillion worth of transactions last year. That's more than Visa. So you've taken something that's wildly popular and now you've backdoored it into something that's now under government control. So in an emergency, as we know, this is how Congress works. Next time there's a big emergency, a cyber attack, whatever it happens to be, Congress could meet and say, hey, you know what? Stablecoin issuers, if you want to be legal, you're going to have to add the ability for complete programmable money and the ability to only allow people to use stablecoins to buy products and services that are on a pre-approved whitelist. They have the ability to do that now. This is essentially what's been opened up here. And in the history of financial surveillance, which goes back to 1970 with the Bank Secrecy Act, it's never been reversed. Financial surveillance from Congress only moves in one direction, and it gets worse one emergency at a time.
And this is primarily through the Genius Act, which was just signed into law last week. Am I correct, Aaron? And
Yes.
and again, Aaron stating, and I think that he is spot on, that with the BBB and the Genius Act, this is the Patriot Act on steroids in terms of surveillance and the expansion of government surveillance. Can you give a quick overview of the Genius Act, the most troublesome elements of the Genius Act? I mean, here essentially it is creating the backdoor CBDC, right? It is, just kind of using stable coins or something that's already popular in order to write that into law. But can you give the audience an overview of why this is so bad, what your concerns are with it?
Yeah, the reason it's bad is that, and many people aren't aware, is that our existing financial surveillance is bad. So these Bank
Right.
Secrecy Acts, the Patriot Act, and all that other stuff is bad. What this is doing is essentially applying those already bad surveillance rules to the stablecoin. So that's the first part of it that's bad. So in other words, we're adding trackability, programmability and censorship to something that's private, something that's popular. So in essence, it's making it a backdoor CBDC. The other major problem with this, and interestingly enough, because they've just made out the Federal Reserve to be the bad guy, but yet now stablecoin issuers are going to have to provide monthly audits to the Federal Reserve. And I want everybody to think about how absurd this is. The idea that, we have the Federal Reserve that itself hasn't been audited, is now, in order to make these things somehow stable and something that people are going to have confidence in, we're going to have the Federal Reserve auditing them every month. Isn't that a bit odd?
Right.
But what I think you're going to see happening here is, and this happens often with Congress and with regulations, they put in regulations that are so difficult to comply with that it creates a scenario where the new players, like in this case Tether and USDC, will have to be acquired by larger banks in order to meet the regulatory burden. So what I suspect you're going to see out of this is not a million stable coins and any kind of innovation or proliferation of that. You're going to see the same institutions capture something that was successful and then give control over surveillance to Congress. And we're already seeing that. The four big banks, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Citi, and Wells Fargo, have announced that they're going to work together to launch a CBDC, a stable coin. And then individually, I know at least Wells Fargo and Bank of America have announced they're going to individually launch a stable coin. So this isn't in any way good. This doesn't represent a positive development for Americans. The truth is, you never were going to be in a situation where Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve was the one that was going to be surveilling your coins. It's actually not even in their interest to do so. Now all of the digital programmable money is going to be in control of Congress and whatever commercial banks end up owning this. So that's the one first big area is surveillance that's wrong with this. The other is one of the main driving forces for even doing this is, and it relates to the one big bill. We have $37 trillion in debt. No one wants to buy U.S. Treasuries anymore. China has said ditch the dollar, and Japan has said is not in the position to invest as much because of their own economic struggles. And so those have been traditionally the largest purchasers of U.S. Treasuries. Well, now you could say, well, remember just 6 months ago when people were saying we were going to balance the budget? I remember from Trump's first term said he was going to eliminate the debt in 2 terms. So, but that didn't happen. So we passed the one big bill, which means we're going to add $2.5 trillion a year for the next 2 years, and then I'm sure beyond, to the debt. So how are you going to fund this? Well, one of the things that they put into the Genius Act is if you're a stablecoin issuer, you have to back your stablecoins 1-to-1 by only U.S. Treasuries and only U.S. dollars. This means that, according to our own Treasury Secretary, they believe they're going to be able to sell at least $2 trillion worth of treasuries to back these stable coins and to participate in all of the stablecoin hype. So we're getting a backdoor CBDC and funding debt and all of the tyranny that goes along with current U.S. government policy. Those are the two things that we effectively get out of this legislation.
Unbelievable. So again, once on the backs of the American people, we're bailing out our own government. All of the profligate spending, all of the debt spending. We essentially, through this process, individual Americans will be propping up our dollar. Is that what I'm understanding, or bailing ourselves out?
Well, it's not just American citizens. It's anybody who uses a stablecoin. People all over the world use stablecoins. So anybody that uses a stablecoin anywhere in the world is participating in the funding of U.S. debt.
You guys know that one of our amazing sponsors is Colonial Metals Group. We could not bring this show to you, this expansion, this studio, the ability to bring Annie in to produce the show. This is all because of some of our key sponsorships. And Colonial Metals Group has been a partner with the Shannon Joy Show. They have helped so many of you begin your gold and silver journey, whether it's through the purchase of physical gold and silver or through an independent IRA backed by gold and silver. They can do transfers. They can take a 401k and transfer a portion of that or the entire thing into an individual IRA backed by gold and silver that you direct, right? So you have all the control over it. It is much faster and much easier than I ever imagined. It took less than a couple days for me to get mine set up, and they are standing by. They are ready to talk to all of you about how you can begin to protect your retirement. colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. That is colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. Please use that URL. Make sure that you tell them that Shannon Joy sent you. This case, as reported by Politico, is the city of Alameda intervened and halted the test. The officials began to look into this with help from an organization from the local level and learned that it cited a lack of complete transparency. There was massive public backlash and they forced a shutdown of the test. This was an elite funded climate tech experiment. They were going to roll it out covertly, and the suburbs decided, we don't consent. We're not lab rats. We're not going to let you experiment on us in our home. And they stopped it. All right. And this is the headline from Politico. Researchers quietly planned a test to dim the sunlight. They wanted to avoid scaring the public. The public found out, and hundreds of documents now show how the researchers failed to notify properly these officials in California, and the entire thing got blocked and shut down hard. We need to emulate what happened in Alameda and every town and village across the United States of America. Whether it's a sunlight dimming operation, a solar radiation management operation, a cloud seeding operation, an operation to end the drought, whether it's a massive data center, a freedom city with mass surveillance using drone technology or satellite technology, whatever it is that they're cooking up for us at the national or global level, we need to be ready. We need to be prepared and organized at that bottom up level so we can just say, oh, hell no. If people spent less time fighting over the headlines of the day, the curated chaos coming out of Washington, D.C. and the global news cycle, if we focus more on our neighbors and our communities and organizing outside of the political paradigms, we could stop everything. And we could do that based on common sense, basic freedom, the Constitution of the United States of America, and really truly begin to emancipate from these rulers who seek to control everything. This is going to become the most important topic, I believe, in the next 5 years, because they are now going into implementation mode. You are going to begin to see all of the bills, the emergency orders, the executive orders, the legislation over the past 6 months. This is all going to begin to be rolled out. You're going to experience it with your 401k. You're going to experience it in your community. All of a sudden, you're going to see changes in the way that daily life is lived. And you're going to wonder, where did it come from? Well, it came from Washington, D.C., and the right didn't talk about it. So I loved those stories. I thought they were, it's, just wonderful. And we're going to be keeping an eye on all of that for sure. I want to go to the live chat and say hello to all of you. Chronozone 777, thank you so much for being with us today on the Shannon Joy Show live chat on Rumble. Mav 2022, great to see you on the live chat as well. Zen Woman, yes, helping others always helps your own psyche. I have learned that over the years, that when things are chaotic with my business, I don't know where things are going, like getting out there, getting involved in community, helping people, it really just makes you feel so much better. For sure. Let's see what else we have to say on the live chat. Buskman, great to see you. Guitar Lily is with us today on the live chat. Nostradamus, great to see you as well. CJP Rumble, if you guys have a comment. Yes, Mav 2022, driving around New York State over the weekend, the number of huge solar farms is just ridiculous, and signs all over trying to fight the wind turbines. It's really difficult, but that doesn't mean that we give up for sure. I know. Yeah, the data centers are, the amount of water necessary to run those data centers, the amount of energy and power, is why they're linking them up to like nuclear reactors. It's insane. Kelly McCarty, it keeps repeating. I agree. And thank you, Kelly McCarty, for your response. Tomorrow, I'll read some of the responses on my post for regarding the Israeli Palestinian, or the Israeli Gaza conflict. And Kelly, one of your comments just really, it just warmed my heart, because I hear you guys that, trying to figure out what is going on and making a educated and rational, reasonable determination about a position is getting harder and harder, especially in this crazy 24-hour news cycle. Blackout, brownout, natural disaster, alien invasion, government created disaster, you name it. If you are prepared, then you will not be afraid. And it is only when we are afraid that we are vulnerable to the manipulation and the coercion of this hostile government. And so one of the things that I encourage to this audience and for this audience is to be prepared. Satellite Phone Store has everything you need, from solar panels to generators to Faraday technologies that will protect your devices from a potential EMP attack, and also protect you from EMF radiation from the 5G, the 4G, the 3G, and all of the Gs, right? They have everything you need for communication, so many different satellite phone packages for all of your needs. They have great monthly plans. And if you use the promo code JOY, you will get 10% off your annual fee and a free satellite phone. So go to sat123.com/joy today. That is sat123.com/joy today. Use that promo code JOY for all of your purchases. It's always going to get you that nice, robust 10% off.
I think people don't realize how prolific sex buying is and how many men actually do engage in prostitution in their own communities. For example, the most common brothel that is existing in basically every city has a strip mall or a shopping center with a massage parlor that looks a little sketchy. Those are often really just brothels where these women are forced to engage and provide, happy ending massages that are really just sex acts. And I mean, there's a website called rubmax.com. You and I, we never hear about that website, but every sex buyer knows about it. You can go on that website and find a massage parlor that offers sexual services in every single city. And it'll tell you where they are, what kind of services they provide. They rate the women. It's really gross. So it's everywhere, and if you look at some of these civil cases now against these apps, to your point, this could be your pastor, this could be, the teacher in the local school. They know they can get on these dating apps, they can get on WhatsApp and Snapchat and find a child to purchase. That's just the truth. I'm aware of a case right now against Grindr where, a handicapped boy was almost immediately assaulted by 4 men the day he joined the Grindr app. And, the problem in my mind is that these apps know that they are facilitating the abuse and exploitation of children, and they don't care. And at times they even facilitate it because it makes them a lot of money, and they can't be held accountable right now, or it's very difficult to hold them accountable because they of a federal law called Section 230 that provides them pretty broad immunity. So in my mind, I want to see some more high-level accountability for these tech companies.
Yes.
Because to your point, we can go and arrest individual perpetrators, but how you actually stop the systemic abuse is moving up the chain to like a large corporation, for example, that is hosting hundreds of thousands of predators on their app. They shouldn't be able to do that. And that's how we reduce what is becoming an exploding exploitation problem, where children are literally being exploited by the thousands. Every single one of them has a phone, and they're getting solicited daily. And we get into exposure pornography, which I think is grooming an entire generation.
Yes, I will tell you, I had a friend, really scary story. Their child was, as some children will do, exploring, and they get to a certain age on the internet. They were contacted, emailed by a person pretending to be a young person and asking them to send a picture. And if they would, then they would send another picture of something happened, and actually coerce this child into taking a picture of their face and their body and sending it, and then immediately attacked them and was like, thank God they went to, their parents and told them about it, but it was like, do this, do that, send me money, or else I'm going to put this up all over social media. This is like a young child. It's crazy.
This is happening, and I can't even tell you, this is happening every day. Like it's actually like I would consider this an emergency. There is One, I'll give you two really quick examples. One is a state legislator in South Carolina. So this is a well-connected man. He's like a Christian, great family. His son was like an all-star football player, has the same kind of contact, thinks he's talking to a teenage boy, gets extorted. Literally, the dad goes into his son's room the next morning. He's dead. Within hours, this child went from meeting this person to committing suicide because the extortion got so extreme. We represent two 13-year-old boys, exact scenario.
No.
They thought they were talking to a 16-year-old girl who sent a nude photo on Snapchat, coerced them to send, so then invited them to send it, then blackmailed them with that photo into sending more. It circulated all over Twitter, hundreds of thousands of views. The child reached out to Twitter, told them it was child pornography, which is illegal and banned. Twitter said, we reviewed the content, not taking it down.
No.
Yes. So we're suing Twitter for that. And of course, so far they've gotten 230 immunity. We're appealing that because we believe that cannot go on. Like this kind of immunity for these tech companies is enabling literally what I would consider a national, international emergency of kids being targeted exactly how you've described.
That's unbelievable. I got a couple emails saying like, very nasty, saying we saw the pictures of what you did, like trying to like trick me into thinking I did something, and we're gonna post them all over the internet and this and that. And like, so I sent it to my IT guy. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, but if the point though is if anyone has ever done anything like years ago on the internet, like they could be very vulnerable, be like, oh my gosh, did I send a sexy picture to my boyfriend or my husband? Or did, like there could be things that are done within the confines of marriage that people wouldn't want out there that can be grabbed and exploited. I mean, this is like crazy.